Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into apeirophobia.
Apeirophobia.
Yeah, the fear of infinity and how it might connect to the autistic experience.
Right.
That feeling of dread some people get when they think about the vastness of space
Hmm.
or time going on forever.
Yeah.
We're going to try to unpack that.
Okay.
Why this specific phobia might be more common in autistic adults.
Interesting.
And more importantly, what you can do if you're struggling with it.
Right. So what we're looking at here isn't just a general fear of the unknown.
Gotcha.
It's a very particular kind of fear.
Yeah, okay.
And our sources suggest that the autistic experience of the world might play a role.
Okay, so let's dive into that. One of the things that really jumped out at me from the research was this idea of sensory sensitivity.
Hmm.
So if you're autistic, you might already be dealing with a world that just feels very overwhelming,
Right.
like from a sensory perspective.
Yeah.
Bright lights,
Yes.
loud noises, strong smells, these can be a lot to process. Now, imagine layering on top of that the concept of infinity.
Wow.
Endless space, time stretching on forever. It's almost like trying to take a sip of water from a fire hose.
Exactly. Like sensory overload on a whole other level. Like
Yeah.
imagine if you're already feeling overwhelmed by, let's say, the bright lights and the loud noises of a supermarket,
Right.
and then you're trying to grasp the endless expanse of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
That sensory overload could definitely intensify that fear of infinity.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Then there's the need for predictability, which we know is really important for a lot of autistic individuals.
Really?
Routines, structure, knowing what to expect.
Yeah,
These can provide a sense of safety and control,
for sure.
but the concept of infinity kind of throws a wrench into all of that.
Oh, definitely. Because infinity is boundless and unpredictable.
Yeah.
It just clashes with that need for structure and knowing what comes next.
I used to get completely overwhelmed thinking about the vastness of space. Like I would lie awake at night staring at the ceiling,
Yeah.
just feeling completely insignificant.
I could see that.
Like my brain couldn't handle the idea of something with no end.
I think that feeling of being overwhelmed by the sheer scale of things, something a lot of people experience,
Yeah,
but it can be particularly intense for autistic individuals.
for sure.
And it's not just the physical world either.
Right.
The concept of time stretching on forever can be just as daunting.
Absolutely, because it disrupts that sense of order and predictability that a lot of autistic people rely on.
Exactly. It also ties into, just that general fear of the unknown,
Mm-hmm.
which can be unsettling for anyone.
Yeah.
But for some autistic individuals, that uncertainty can be especially hard to navigate.
Yeah.
Think about how challenging it could be when you have transitions or changes in routine or unexpected events.
Yeah.
Now magnify that and apply it to the concept of, an unknowable infinite future.
It's like trying to build a house on a foundation of shifting sand. You need something solid to ground you, and infinity doesn't really provide that.
That's such a good analogy. So we've got sensory overload,
Mm-hmm.
the need for predictability,
Right?
and that fear of the unknown,
Yeah.
all converging in this very specific phobia.
It's fascinating.
But, knowing why apeirophobia might be more prevalent in autistic adults is only part of the equation.
Right.
What can our listener do if they're struggling with this fear?
Right.
What tools can we offer them to help them manage those feelings of anxiety?
That's what I'm really curious about. Our sources mentioned a few different approaches, and I'm eager to get into those.
Okay, let's start with mindfulness and meditation,
Okay.
which can be super helpful for bringing yourself back to the present moment.
I've dabbled in mindfulness a bit myself,
Yeah.
and I find it so helpful for just silencing that inner critic
Yeah.
and just focusing on what's happening right here, right now.
It's like hitting the pause button and
Yeah.
all those racing thoughts about, the vastness of everything
Yeah.
and just allowing yourself to be present in the moment.
Yeah, it's like a mental reset button.
Yeah, it is.
Our sources also highlighted cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT,
Mm-hmm.
as a powerful tool for addressing, a wide range of anxieties,
Right.
including apeirophobia.
So CBT is fascinating because it helps you identify those negative thought patterns that are feeding your anxiety.
Okay.
So imagine you're, spiraling, thinking about the endless future.
Yeah.
CBT helps you hit the brakes on that thought
Mm-hmm.
and ask, is this thought helpful?
Oh. Interesting.
Is there another way to look at this?
So it's about reframing your thinking,
Yes,
finding a new perspective that feels less overwhelming.
exactly. You're basically training your brain to approach those thoughts differently.
Okay.
And speaking of controlling what we let in, another important aspect of managing apeirophobia is being mindful of the information that you're consuming.
You're talking about doom scrolling, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like the endless cycle of negative news
Yes.
and social media that can just amplify anxieties
Exactly.
about the state of the world and
Yeah.
the future.
Because you have the power to choose what you let into your mental space.
Yeah.
So be mindful of your media consumption,
Mm.
especially, when you're feeling vulnerable.
It's about protecting your peace, so to speak.
Yeah.
We can't forget about grounding techniques,
Oh, yes.
which are fantastic for bringing you back to the here and now.
Yeah, grounding techniques are all about shifting your focus
Okay.
away from those abstract, anxiety-provoking thoughts
Mm.
and reconnecting with your physical body and your surroundings.
Yeah, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I like to just focus on the feeling of my feet on the ground.
Oh, that's great.
It's very simple,
Yeah,
but it just helps me feel rooted.
that's a great example of a grounding technique.
Yeah.
There are so many simple but effective ways to ground yourself. Deep breathing exercises, focusing on your five senses, using a grounding object,
Right.
smooth stone.
Oh, yeah.
It's about finding what works for you and having those tools ready when the anxiety starts to creep in.
Yeah, it's like having a mental first aid kit
Exactly.
for when those apeirophobia-related anxieties start to flare up.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about eliminating those thoughts about infinity altogether.
No?
It's about learning to manage them
Right.
so they don't control your life.
And we can't forget about the power of connection.
Yes.
Just talking to others who understand what you're going through can be really validating
It can.
and empowering.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Remember, you're not alone in this.
Right.
And, connecting with other autistic individuals who might be experiencing similar anxieties,
Hmm.
that can really provide a sense of community
Yeah.
and shared understanding.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you're finding it difficult to manage your anxiety on your own,
Mm-hmm.
don't hesitate to reach out to a therapist or counselor.
Yeah.
There is absolutely no shame in seeking professional guidance.
It's like having a guide to help you navigate
Yes.
those challenging thoughts and emotions.
Right.
And sometimes that external support can make all the difference.
It can be life-changing.
Yeah.
So we've talked about, the why behind apeirophobia
Right.
and some practical ways to cope.
Yeah.
But there's another layer to this conversation that I find particularly intriguing.
Oh, I'm all ears. What is it?
Well, we've talked about how sensory sensitivities
Yeah.
and that need for predictability might contribute to apeirophobia.
Right.
But what about the way autistic individuals experience time?
Mm-hmm.
Could that play a role as well?
That's a fascinating thought. I know there's been research suggesting that autistic individuals might experience time differently than neurotypical individuals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if our experience of time is different, could that influence how we perceive and relate to the concept of infinity?
That's a question I've honestly never considered before. It's like we're opening up a whole new dimension to this whole conversation.
And it speaks to the broader conversation about neurodiversity
Right.
and the ways in which our brains can perceive and process the world differently.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if for some autistic individuals, the concept of infinity wasn't a source of fear,
Yeah.
but rather a source of fascination or even comfort.
That's interesting. It's like we're challenging this assumption that apeirophobia is like a universal experience.
Yeah.
What if it's not the concept of infinity itself that's inherently frightening, but rather our limited human understanding of it?
That's a really profound point. What if the fear arises from our inability to fully grasp something so vast and boundless?
Yeah.
And what if for some autistic individuals, their unique experience of time allows them to approach the concept of infinity with less anxiety and more wonder?
It's mind-blowing to think about, and it highlights how much we still have to learn about the autistic experience and just the incredible diversity of human perception.
Absolutely. And it underscores the importance of creating a more inclusive and understanding society, one where neurodiversity is celebrated and individuals feel supported in seeking the help they need
Yeah.
without fear of judgment or stigma.
I love that because at the end of the day, it's about fostering that sense of belonging and acceptance,
Yes,
regardless of how our brains are wired.
exactly. We all experience the world in unique ways, and those differences should be honored and respected.
It makes you wonder if apeirophobia is always about fear, or if it can sometimes be about a sense of wonder that we haven't learned to fully grasp or articulate yet.
I think that's a question worth exploring further. What if instead of viewing apeirophobia solely through the lens of anxiety, we also acknowledge the potential for awe and wonder?
It's like looking up at a starry night sky and feeling both incredibly small and incredibly connected to something much greater than yourself.
Precisely. And that sense of connection, that feeling of being part of something infinite and expansive,
Right.
could be a source of comfort rather than anxiety.
Yeah, it's like we're shifting the narrative from fear to possibility.
Exactly. And that shift in perspective can be incredibly empowering.
So what does all of this mean for our listener? If they're struggling with apeirophobia, what message do we want them to take away from this deep dive?
First and foremost, I want to emphasize that you're not alone.
Yeah.
Apeirophobia can be a real struggle, but understanding why it occurs and having tools to manage anxiety can make a world of difference.
We've explored some of those tools today. Mindfulness, CBT, grounding techniques, connecting with others, being mindful of your media consumption.
These are all valuable strategies for managing anxiety, and it's important to find what works best for you. Experiment. Be patient with yourself, and remember that it's a journey, not a destination.
And beyond the practical tools, I think it's also important to remember that your experience is valid.
Yes.
If you're feeling overwhelmed by the concept of infinity, that's okay. There's no shame in seeking support and finding ways to cope.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And remember, even if you're not experiencing apeirophobia yourself, understanding these coping mechanisms can be incredibly helpful if you have loved ones who are struggling. The more we understand about the unique ways autistic individuals experience the world, the better equipped we are to support each other.
It's all about fostering empathy and understanding. And I think this deep dive has given our listener a lot to ponder.
I hope so. We've explored the complexities of apeirophobia, its possible connection to the artistic experience, and the potential for reframing our understanding of this unique phobia.
And I want to encourage our listener to keep exploring. Learn more about mindfulness grounding techniques and the unique ways autistic individuals experience the world.
There are so many incredible resources available, and connecting with others who share similar experiences can be incredibly empowering.
I completely agree. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. We're all in this together.
We are indeed. And as we wrap up this deep dive into apeirophobia and the autistic experience, I want to leave our listener with a final thought. We've talked about how the autistic experience of time might influence perceptions of infinity, but what about the concept of infinity itself? Could it be that our limited human understanding of time is what makes infinity so anxiety-provoking?
It's a really interesting question to think about. It kind of suggests that maybe the fear isn't inherent in the concept of infinity itself,
Right.
but maybe in like our own limitations and trying to comprehend something so big.
Exactly. We're trying to grasp something that's totally beyond our human experience of time and space,
Right.
and it can be really unsettling. But what if we shift our perspective a little bit?
Yeah.
What if instead of being afraid, we embrace the mystery? What if we allow ourselves to just be in awe of the vastness of it all?
It's like we're trading our anxiety for curiosity. Instead of shrinking back from the unknown, we're like leaning into it,
Yeah.
exploring it with a sense of wonder.
And who knows what we might discover when we approach infinity with that mindset?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll find a sense of peace and interconnectedness that we never even knew was possible.
It's like we're expanding our own inner universe by embracing the infinite possibilities of the outer universe.
Beautifully said. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
So, dear listener, we leave you with this challenge. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep embracing the infinite possibilities of your own mind.
And remember, whether you find the concept of infinity terrifying or exhilarating, your experience is valid, and you're not alone on this journey.
Until next time, happy diving.